Today's video is for you short-term rental investors. Those of you in Stone County and Taney County in southern Missouri probably have some questions about all the regulations that have rolled out in the last few years. Moving to southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. And as most of you know, it is no longer the wild, wild west for short-term rental investors in either Stone or Taney County. Although there's a lot of counties that still are. I want you guys to stick around to the end. I'm going to give you some tips to succeed with your short-term rental, even if you are in a saturated market that's highly competitive, just like it is in the Table Rock Lake areas. Of course, in each county, there's always teeny tiny towns and townships that we're not going to mention, but for the most part in Stone County, you have a few fingers, very western fingers of Branson, of course, Branson West and Reed Spring, which are often a little bit muddled. Kimberling City, Galena, Lampe, Crane, Blue Eye, Indian Point, Coney Island. Those are kind of the ones you usually hear about, especially for short-term rentals. Taney County is synonymous with Branson, so that is gonna be your biggest epicenter of short-term rentals. But we also have Forsyth, Hollister, Rockaway Beach, and Merriam Woods, which are a little rough around the edges. We've got Kirbyville, Kissy Mills, and Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek, of course, being considered incredibly rural. So the first distinction I want to make that honestly makes researching short-term rental laws and regulations a little bit tricky is because you have both your municipal codes and then you have your county code. And so they are going to, of course, have differences, and within city limits, those city laws are going to, trump county law. So really important to know because there's some huge differences within some of the city rules and then of course the county rules. And this is where those distinctions are going to be crucial. And here's what I recommend. When you want to know about a specific property, literally give me a call and I will dig into every aspect. So I'm going to be looking at where it's at, its zoning, if it has any grandfathered in status, which we'll talk about, all these details that really are so specific. You really have to do each property on a case-by-case basis when it comes to researching the plausibility of it being a short-term rental. Let's start by digging into Stone County, which is an odd mixture of incredibly stringent and also more favorable regulations towards short-term rentals. So it's really important to know those distinctions. So to start with a big one, Stone County passed an amendment that absolutely prohibits any short-term rentals in any R1 zone properties. So anything designated just regular residential no longer can have a short-term rental within that zoning. There's also a very small chance that you can have your R1 property rezoned as RR1. I want to tell you, it was also said by the woman I spoke to in Stone County, very small chance. And that's only going to be considered if all of the surrounding properties are similar. So like if somehow you have like an R1 zoning kind of amongst RR1 zoning, or it's incredibly remote, something that makes it, align more with the characteristics of RR1, they will consider it. But she said it's a very small chance that will even be approved. But here's the problem. Stone County told me twice now, so I truly think that they're being very upfront with this, which is that they are only granting 50% of any new permit regarding a short-term rental. So you literally have a 50-50 chance that maybe one of the biggest investments of your portfolio will even have a chance of functioning legally. I'm gonna be honest, while I am a little bit more risk tolerant, it's something that I personally can do in my own life, that doesn't feel right to me either. And as a realtor, I would have a really hard time selling a piece of property to somebody and telling them that they have a 50-50 chance of even being able to fulfill their investment dreams with that property. And it might flop because the council might just vote it down. So it's a little bit more favorable with RR1 or with anything zoned ag. So it is possible that you can get a CUP, which is a conditional use permit, and you actually can get approval to have a short-term rental in either of those more rural designations. The feeling I got talking with a woman at Stone County Planning and Zoning is that they're taking a pretty strong stance, and they really want people to work within the existing zoning. So of course, they really want to push short-term rentals, not just to the rural areas, but anything that is commercial or already granted, like let's say some sort of, condo, anything that's high density. They really want short-term rentals to be in those predetermined zoned areas. Now, here is one way that Stone County is incredibly more favorable to short-term rentals than Taney County, which is in Stone County, if you already have a short-term rental that has been grandfathered in, which means that it was either operating before these new rules went into place, or it's already functioning and it's in like the correct zoning for a short-term rental, that designation really goes with the property and not the property owner. So this term grandfathered in, or you'll see on so many listings, short-term rental or nightly rental approved. And that really only is true within Stone County. Taney County is different, and we will talk about that in just a minute. So in that way, Stone County is actually much better. And at least if you're purchasing a property that already has that grandfathered in status, which make sure you see paperwork that verifies that, or it already has favorable zoning and already has a current permit, you can be assured that you also can do a short-term rental there. So here's where I want to describe the big differences between cities within Stone County and then of course the county laws themselves. So what I do, and what if anyone is giving you advice, this is what they should be doing, is they should be finding out the property that you're interested in specifically. Is it in a incorporated town? Is it in an unincorporated area or town? And so what jurisdiction is it going to fall under? So for example, properties in Lampe right now, if they're not, if they weren't operating as a short-term rental before all these laws went in, then they are not grandfathered in, and if they're R1, they cannot be short-term rentals, no matter what anybody tells you. So very, very important to know. And I do want to say, unfortunately, you're still seeing properties being marketed in Lampe, which is unincorporated, as short-term rental friendly properties, and they have no right to be. They're not grandfathered in, and they will never get permitted. So something that's really important to know. Conversely, if you look at, let's say Reed Springs or Blue Eye, both incorporated towns, and they have favorable, very like almost non-existent regulations towards STR. I mean, they pretty much, one wants you to have a permit, the other one wants you to file taxes. It's just very, very simple stuff. And so, yeah, you got to know exactly where each property is and what jurisdiction it falls under. There is actually one last very important distinction that we need to make with Stone County. And that is that Stone County is actively looking to fine anyone that's operating an illegal, unpermitted short-term rental. So I wasn't able to find out any kind of court precedent, like what kind of fines are we talking about, but it's worded and the county speaks of it enough that it sounds like they're taking it seriously. They are actively pursuing any illegal short-term rentals. And I truly believe they definitely say that after 2 letters, you are going to go before a judge and you are going to be looking at fines. So kind of not worth it also in my mind to take that risk. And I strongly recommend that just for ease of operation, that everyone tries to find properties that are already in acceptable areas for short-term rentals. However, saying that, if you also are in an R1 designation in Taney County, they're not going to give you a permit, so you really can't ever get that legal status. So that's where I think if that happens a lot, we might see a stronger enforcement arm happening in Taney County to respond to that. So let's go over some of the differences in Taney County. So as we were just talking about, Stone County is actively trying to pursue any illegal short-term rentals, while Taney County is taking a more relaxed stance on that aspect. So they are a complaint-driven county, and truly only if something really egregious happens, your neighbors are complaining, is any kind of, legal process going to even start. And I haven't really been able to dig into the details of what will happen. It really sounds like a series of letters, like a lot of letters, like maybe 6 letters or something. And they're just really going to be encouraging you to try to establish your short-term rental as a legal permitted short-term rental. There is no real threats. Not to say that if they're not pushed, they might not go that way, since they already have the laws passed to, to create more of like an enforcement. But currently right now it's complaint driven, and it's mostly just trying to get the operators to correct from illegal to legal status. This is also an incredibly important distinction for Taney County. Taney County does not have any concept of grandfathered in short-term rentals. So you can imagine as a realtor my frustration when I can go online and find dozens of properties that are being marketed as nightly rental approved or grandfathered in short-term rentals. There is no such thing in Taney County, except if you are in Branson city limits. So Branson is the only area that does have this notion within Taney County of grandfathered in. So within Branson, you can have STRs grandfathered in, because that designation really goes with the property and is not distinct to the property owner. So really important for you guys to know these distinctions before you purchase property, because you're going to tell there's going to be a huge difference in, let's say, Hollister than there will be to Branson. And I got into really researching all these details to try to help a client, and I made a grave mistake that I don't want any of you investors to make. I listened to a realtor. Never do that. No, seriously, I listened to a realtor that told me how stringent the rules were in Forsyth, which I knew weren't true. I needed to just call Will, who is in head of planning, the planning department. I know him. I've already talked to him about short-term rentals, but I'm going to be honest. This realtor is a big producer, and I just, like all of us, just thought, hey, they sell a lot of property. They must be an authoritative voice on the topic. And they told me that in Forsyth, you needed to have neighborhood approval, like where you have to go around with like almost like a petition and have everyone sign, like if they're going to support your nightly rental, and that very few new permits were being given out into Forsyth. And he literally told me, you would be better served to steer your client to an already designated, like predetermined zoning area, probably closer to Branson. Totally steered me away from Forsyth. And I made a huge mistake that I will never make again. Before going against the knowledge that I already knew myself, I did not call Will at planning, and I told my client all this misinformation. And I really learned a lesson. So it was bothering me, like what this information was bothering me, because I already know that Forsyth is special. I have been directing investors towards Forsyth for different asset classes, because I truly believe that Forsyth is beginning a gentrification process, and that it's going to kind of naturally become one of the outlier metro areas of the Branson area. And I just think that it has potential, even though still it is a little bit rough around the edges, not like Rockaway Beach and Merriam Woods, which are still visibly pretty rough around the edges, but there's a lot of development happening in Forsyth. And I truly believe that it's an up and coming area. Now that might take 10 years to kind of be, really visible, but I see the signs that it's already starting to happen. So when I say that I know Will at planning, and I don't say planning and zoning, that's because Forsyth is so amazing. They do not have zoning. So within city limits, you literally can have a property and you can use it for commercial use, and then you use it for residential use, and then you switch it again, and they don't care. There's no zoning. Now there is planning though, but it is always, I have found, very agreeable to investors and entrepreneurs. So after I made the mistake and repeated what this realtor said to my client, huge mistake, I actually then finally called Will, and we had a great talk, and they are very favorable to short-term rentals. They do not ask for any kind of neighbor approval. They're granting pretty much all the permits. They just want to have, it's probably like a $25 business permit, few little other things, basic kind of safety standards, very basic. And that is it, my friends. So the realtors that are in the know of Forsyth, I noticed that they will say nightly rental approved, and they're all within city limits. But I did find ones that were outside of city limits that said they were either grandfathered in or nightly rental approved, and they will not be. Because if they are in the unincorporated areas outside of the, municipal district, they are going to fall under Taney County rules, and there is no grandfathering in Taney County. If you guys feel any confusion, just know that we are two peas in a pod. I actually have had to search through this and multiple phone calls to multiple city councils and counties, planning and zoning. So I just want to say this. One, I am here for you. All investors, please know that I will do the research for you. So what that means is that I want to research your specific properties that you're interested in, and I want to vet those specific properties for short-term rental favorability. I think that any realtor that gives you kind of a blanket statement might not be looking into all the details enough, and I truly think that there should be just a few different angles that the properties are now examined, because really we're dealing with a lot of different elements now. We're dealing with county, we're dealing with different municipalities, and we're dealing with pre-existing grandfathered in status, which could have been established 10 years ago, right? And so if you're in Stone County. So there's all these new factors, and I truly think that each property needs to be researched on a case-by-case basis. Something important to note, especially if you are invested in Taney County, I think it's important to note, like for Branson, for example, in 2021, that is when they passed their amendments to city code that were twofold. So in Branson, they legalized any individual room rentals within a single family residence. You cannot use a single room for a short-term rental if you are in an R1 area at all. And then in general, you cannot have a short-term rental in any zoning area that's not already predetermined favorable for short-term rentals. So those were the two laws in Branson that were passed in 2021. And I really think it's important to know why those laws passed. And it was because there were so many complaints by neighbors of, guests that were doing illegal drugs, underage drinking, loud music, vulgar language outside the home where children could hear, and just also parking in people's parking spaces, and just all sorts of bad behavior within, neighborhoods that were really family centric. After reading that, I thought about it, and yeah, for the first time, I'm very investor focused, but I really could hear like the concerns that neighbors had of what was happening to their neighborhoods with these unruly guests. And so saying that, I think it's very important, even if you are in a designated area, that as a host, you take some responsibility for who you're renting to. Now, I want to remind you, investors, your guests are looking at your reviews and your ratings. And so I know it is time, it costs time, but I think that we should be looking at our guests' reviews and ratings as well. And just vetting that we are going to create a great experience, not just for our guests, but for the neighborhood and setting in which our short-term rental resides in. So just like I promised, we're gonna go over some tips that will help you succeed no matter what market you're in short-term rentals. I wanna push back a little bit on this concept that we are in an Airbnb bust era that started in 2023 and is just heightening in 2024. And you see a lot of people saying that investors should pull out of short-term rentals and that it's no longer profitable. However, as a realtor, I actually get to see a lot of people's financials who are operating in both Taney and Stone County, which are totally saturated and now somewhat heavily regulated, and they're still crushing it. But these are definitely operators that are providing a special experience for their guests. But there's a few things I actually haven't even seen even some of the best operators embrace, and I want to itemize those now. So the name of the game in STR, short-term rental investment, is unique. If you can just embrace and remember that one term, you actually will see noticeable gains in your profitability. So I want you to take that word unique and I want you to think unique stays. But I also want you to think about unique amenities. I want you to think about a specialized experience that provides amenities that you just don't see anyone else providing. So I want to be honest, I love that almost every high-end short-term rental in both Taney and Stone County have a pool table and a hot tub. Those are great amenities, and I do not think that people should skip out on those. But there's so many other amenities that people are not considering, and we're gonna go over some of those now. I do not see lots of short-term rentals that have home gyms, or at least some equipment where people who are enthusiastic about health can maintain their rituals while they're on vacation. But let's say that you do not have the room or just even maybe the startup money to put in a home gym, and it's just not a reality for you. There's something really simple that you can do, which is to build a relationship with a great local gym. And some gyms will actually give you a membership that is like specific for your property, right? It's not for the individual, it's for the property, so that you can actually leave like membership cards that can be used by your guests. And if someone is interested in maintaining health, that is like a really big deal, because if they're from out of the area, they don't want to have to like go start a membership or research, which gyms have what equipment. And if you do that research for them, if you provide access for them, whether you're providing at-home access or just access to a great gym, they are going to be appreciative and perhaps choose your short-term rental over someone else's. In the same line of thinking, embracing that a lot of people really care about health now, I do not see any short-term rentals that really truly embrace a spa experience. And this can be done in little ways and it can be done in big ways. So little ways are, you provide some really nice, but maybe they're affordable for you to buy, terry cloth robes, maybe a few general like small, medium, and large size slippers, and you present them just as a spa would. And of course, that also would need to go hand in hand with the fact that you're providing nice, at least mid-quality beauty products and body care products. So just even having a robe adds to that spa feeling. But I think that people can go further because you got your hot tub outside, and I have not seen anyone provide an infrared sauna within their short-term rental. So there's a lot of things that you can do that actually won't cost you any money. They'll cost you your time and maybe a little bit of money to print up, some sort of either a binder or a pamphlet that's on like nice colored paper, that will actually just provide a lot of resources to your guest. Some ideas that I've had is like you could vet some babysitters and have some babysitters that would agree to come to the short-term rental to help parents, either while the parents are there or the parents get to go out to dinner. I mean, I'm telling you, as a parent, that is such a huge amenity, and technically it didn't cost the host anything to provide. In the same line of thinking, pre-vet some amazing massage therapists in the area that are willing to come with their own traveling massage table. You don't have to provide anything. All you've done is, at some point you get a massage, find out if they're good, see if they'll come to your rental, and you can have, services where people are coming and providing some sort of service. Maybe it's an esthetician, maybe it's even a hairdresser, right? Especially if you have any kind of, if you have guests that are definitely using your property for events or anything like that, think about all the different things that your guest will need to use during that event, or things that would just be really special, and see if you can find professionals who you think are really good that would come to your property with their own supplies and provide that. Your guest is going to pay them directly, and it's as if you're providing this huge red carpet service, and it didn't cost you anything but to make a single pamphlet. The last thing I'm going to talk about is something that I used to be incredibly negative about, and that is about being pet friendly. And what I would say is having a pet friendly STR I would do freely if I had a portfolio and also had in the same area a non-pet friendly STR. And here's the reason why. You want to recognize that people are allergic to pet dander, and you want to provide an experience. Hopefully you have some neighboring properties that are close, that would really ensure that there's never been a pet in that home. Because even a deep cleaning, if someone is incredibly allergic, will not take away that allergy risk. Saying that though, the amount of people who are traveling with their pets is growing. In fact, if you look at long-term tenants, the majority of them have pets, and yet the majority of rentals are not pet friendly. I can speak to this, and it's so harsh, but I was in between homes. It was actually a very hard time in my life. I was getting a divorce with my first marriage, and I had a Mastiff dog, which, they're not popular. They kind of are like deemed like pit bulls, even though some of the sweetest dogs I've ever known have been Mastiffs and pit bulls. Bad owners, not bad breeds, is what I like to say. But I could not find a rental that was pet friendly, and my life was in so much flux, and we actually ended up I was paying $3,000 a month to pay for a pet friendly motel room while my daughter, my dog, and I could find a home. And it was a huge financial sacrifice at the time. I did not need to be spending $3,000 a month on a tiny motel room, but that's how much I love my dog. And I had kind of very unsympathetic family that was like, just take her to the pound, and for those of you that are pet lovers, that is family. So I get that. And so I actually have encouraged recently an investor who's a client, helped him with this large multifamily property and got him really to become more, agreeable to being pet friendly. And it has gone great. First of all, if it's a short-term rental, you're going to ask for a higher cleaning fee, and you're going to ask for a little bit higher of a fee, a rental fee. So those things are going to kind of buffer damage and like extra cleaning that's going to be required. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that I believe in the short-term rental world, mid-term and long-term, there is a deficit of pet-friendly properties. And what I have seen is those that do allow at least one of their rental properties to be pet-friendly, they are incredibly popular and profitable. All right, you guys, we made it through all that information and we got into the weeds about all the new regulations in Stone and Taney County. Once again, I just want to tell you I'm here for you. I know this stuff can kind of make your head swim a little bit. I want to help you be able to sort through the specific properties that you're interested in and vet them before you even think about purchasing them, because really that is how you're going to ensure the profitability and the safety of your investment. I would like to do the painful work for you so that you can focus on all of the unique, creative, and visionary aspects that are going to actually make your heart sing. And I want everyone to remember that first and foremost, we always need to crunch the numbers for profitability. Thank you for watching.